be fully unemployed. It's but you will have to demonstrate over the last 18 months what your income was in order to start collecting benefits. There is a little bit of a hiccup in that the unemployment insurance program is run by the state. And it is for W-2 employees. The federal program extended this to independent contractors. The state has had to transition all of their computer systems over to allow that to happen. So right now, if you're an independent contractor, you cannot apply for that. What you can do is go up to the website, and you can get that information off of our website, and put your email address in. And then once an independent contractor can start to apply for unemployment insurance, they will send you an email, and then you can start the process. The unemployment benefits are simply this, that it depends on what kind of income you are earning during the last 18 months, but it can be from $50 to a maximum of $430. That would be the standard benefit. That would last for about 39 weeks. They extended it. Normally unemployment is 26 weeks. They extended it to 39. And then there was an additional $600 flat fee on top of that. So whatever you qualify under normal unemployment insurance, you get an additional $600 benefit on top of that for basically a 4-month period. So I'll end there and answer any questions.
Yeah, I think the first question, and I just want to clarify something, Bill. So there's a distinction between a sole proprietor and then a small business. So I think both of those categories fit our agents that are on this call. The non-sole proprietors, the folks who have employees, they can apply for the paycheck protection now, correct?
Yes. So April 3rd, it opened up, and all of those folks could have applied on April 3rd. And then the independent contractors can apply April 3rd.
Yeah. So the solo agents have to wait until the 10th in order to apply.
Correct.
Okay.
I would just say the form for applying for the Paycheck Protection Act is pretty short. You can download it, and Teresa, maybe I can send you some of those links that you can get out to folks. I would say start to compile your information now. It'll probably be your 1099s from previous taxes in order to show what your lost income is, because this is a program that has a cap on funding. So once that funding is out, this program will end. I think some of you may have read the paper today. They're seeking an additional $250 billion for the program. I will tell you there's discussions in Congress right now about even funding it more than that. So I do think that, there will definitely be funding available when you apply on the 10th. I can't stress enough, get your information ready. The form itself is about 2 pages of actual questions you answer and about 2 pages of disclosure. So get your stuff ready to file, because it is ultimately going to be a first come, first served program.
Okay. And then also the links that you're talking about are all on the live PDF that you guys put out on your website, correct?
Yeah, not the link to the form. So I'll send a couple of those extra links to you that you can get out to your folks.
Okay. And just FYI, guys, on the reminder that I sent out this morning has a link to the updated form, I guess the updated PDF that you guys had put out last night with kind of an overview of all the information. The one thing I don't think I saw on that form was the information on how to apply for unemployment. And I believe we have a question on that as well. Can you address, that's going through the Maryland Department of Labor, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, Bill, I have a question in terms of the unemployment and also improving the sales. What happens because the tax filing dates have been moved to July 15th, and you say you have to prove the last 18 months. What if you haven't filed the 2019 taxes yet? That's one question. The second question is, what happens if, let's say, you've been an agent for several years, but you've had some weak sales, and in the past 18 months, your sales were a little weak, and you've actually been cashing out on 401ks to subsidize your expenses. What happens there?
So a lot of this we're gonna have to see because we haven't been given a lot of guidance on how the state is gonna be, what kind of proof they're gonna ask in terms of lost income. So I would say that I would be conservative in terms of your planning. If you have had weak sales, I would say that the likelihood is that's what your payment amount is going to be based on, unless you can show some other kind of income. And I will tell you that pensions and other things sometimes can reduce your unemployment benefits. Social Security won't, but pensions can. So,
no, but I was referring to, actually, sorry to interrupt, but I was referring to, let's say, while you've had low sales, let's say you've had a 401k and taking it out with penalties to fund your expenses.
Yeah,
I'm
not sure how the 401k would impact it, but they do, even when you're collecting unemployment, they are asking you, I don't even know if it's every week, but on a regular basis, if you have any new income to declare, because they will adjust your benefits over time. So if you did get part-time work or you did have a commission check come in, that would be something that they would then recalculate your benefits on.
So I just wanted to interject here because I actually just came across this information recently. Thomas, as it relates to, let's say, 401k, for example, that's not considered income, so it shouldn't be counted. That's number one. Number two, as it relates to the pushback on when you file taxes, the coronavirus package that was passed by Congress, you still have a race for people who are trying to file tax returns as quickly as possible so that they can be eligible to receive the $1,200 check that's being sent out. So there's a cap on that. I think it's something like for individual tax filers of $75,000. But if you had slow sales and you didn't meet that, you could be eligible for the $1,200 that they're sending out to people as long as your taxes were filed. So that's one reason why people are racing to do that before that July 15th deadline.
Well, Trevor, actually the $1,200 check is also based on 2018. As long as you filed a 2018 tax return, you have your proof of revenues there, then you can get the $1,200. So it is not just based on the 2019 tax returns.
Fabulous.
Bill, what if someone lost their job just prior to this, say at the end of 2019? Would they be able to take advantage of these programs?
So they would be able to take advantage of the unemployment program. Now, they may already be collecting unemployment insurance. So if they were already collecting unemployment insurance, they would be eligible for the extension and the $600 additional payment. So what they would do is they would just reapply for that, and then they would be eligible to get that.
Okay.
If they haven't applied for it, I'm not really sure, if it's been several months since they've been unemployed. It's unclear right now. I mean, one of the things that, at least the guidance that has been given so far, is that even if you were starting a job, you didn't have any income that you earned yet, you would still be able to apply for these benefits. Now, what that will mean is that if you, depending on how much income you can prove or not prove during that time, it may end up just being that $600 flat fee benefit plus the minimum $50 that you would get. So your unemployment insurance, normal unemployment insurance benefits would be $50 per week, plus that $600 per week that you would get for that 4-month period.
Okay.
So that would be the minimum amount that you would get for 4 months, and then the $50 would go for basically another 39 weeks.
Thank you.
Hey, and I'm going to start with one question, and then Mo, if you want to catch up and you can ask the other questions.
Okay.
But the payroll protection program, or paycheck protection program, if you're self-employed, we've heard a lot about people applying through their bank and other sort of deputized folks that can help with that process. Do you do that through a bank, or how do you apply for that?
Yeah, you do it through a bank, and if that document that Teresa sent around this morning has links both to the unemployment. So if you click on the unemployment link, that will take you to the Department of Labor unemployment site. Scroll down to the bottom of that, enter your email address that you could be notified when they start accepting unemployment requests from independent contractors. On the payroll protection, that will also, that link will take you to all of the Maryland approved lenders. So when you apply for paycheck protection, you're going to go to one of your Maryland lenders. In fact, if you've got a lender that you already do banking business with, start with them, because the program rules are fairly flexible. The lenders are allowed to just deal with their own depositors right now if they want. So I would start with your lending institutions right now to see if they're participating in the program.
Okay. Also, I think you answered this about what is the website for unemployment, but I think you covered that, yes?
Yeah, just go to that document that was emailed to you. There's a link that says apply here. That will take you to the unemployment page. It also has some frequently asked questions on unemployment insurance under the CARES Act.
Okay. Roya says there's no place to put just one's email for unemployment insurance, just a form. I don't know if that's a question or a comment, Roya.
There is on the on that one link I have, there is, if you scroll, you've got to scroll pretty much all the way down to the bottom of the page to get to it. But there's a little box that you would enter, and this is designed and targeted to the independent contractor, because that's the only part of the program right now that isn't up and running. And I can tell you, I had a conversation with one of the folks over at Department of Labor yesterday. They're not sure when that's going to be up and running. They may roll out the $600 benefit first, and then have you, and then give you the regular unemployment benefits as they get their systems up and running. But it's probably not going to be this week, and you know, hopefully at the end of this week we'll have a better idea.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but I believe, Shani, just like what you said for DC, the reason is because right now the Maryland unemployment system is not set up for independent contractors, and they have to rework the system in order to be able to let us apply. That's why you just have to put your email address in there now so that you're notified when the system is able to accept our applications, correct?
Correct.
You see, to that point, DC is handling it quite a little bit differently. They're actually encouraging self-employed to apply already and certify their weekly benefits. And so that when the system is up and running, that you're already in the system, as opposed to just giving them the email. So that is a slight difference there. Also, I noticed, Bill, in your video that we watched on YouTube, you mentioned that you apply for if you're living in Maryland. The DC unemployment office is giving different information out. They're basically saying that if you, let's say, live in DC and you work in Maryland, you have a choice as to where you can apply for unemployment. It is up to you. And so I was just wondering how that works, because we're getting different contradictory information.
So I'll take a look at that again, but my understanding is, and let me just see if I can find that on my cheat sheet here too. There's a great, in fact, I'll include this in the links as well. There's a CARES Act link that has frequently asked questions regarding CARES Act and unemployment. There's another link that is, that I'll include as well, that deals with frequently asked questions on just normal unemployment insurance benefits. It's a lot more detailed, a lot more frequently asked questions on it. So I'll forward that to you guys as well, so you can take a look at that. That's what I was looking at now to see if there's
Well, for the normal unemployment, from past experience, I once was in a situation where I was downsized in Las Vegas, and I was a resident then in New York, and I actually while I was a resident in New York, I did get unemployment through Nevada. So from the regular, if you've been an employee, you do seem to have a choice. So I'm not sure how that works with the PUA program.
Okay, so I did find it on that other question. So if I worked in a state other than Maryland, you would file against the state where you worked. So we'll clarify that.
Okay. Hey, and I have a question too, Bill. Just curious. I know in your video you were saying that all the government agencies are trying to turn these all the money around quickly, all the grants, the loans around very quickly. Do we have any firsthand experience of people who have already applied that have received funds yet on from I think the emergency whatever grant, that one is already funding, correct?
Yes, so on the economic injury disaster loans, yes, we do know that some people have received those. That's a pretty standard program. That program exists anytime there's any kind of disaster that a state is experiencing. So I would say SBA's already had, kind of the infrastructure in place to deal with those. And that's one of the advantages of applying for that loan and the $10,000 grant. That's supposed to be given out within days.
Oh, okay.
Now, I will tell you what is extraordinary is that while they're normally dealing with, a disaster of one state or two state or several states, they're dealing with an entire, the entire country right now. So the volume of things is definitely slowing things down.
Okay.
Wendy wanted to know, where is she here? Wendy, you asked about the 1099. What's the 1099 amount or net income from tax returns?
I guess that means what figure are they looking for? The 1099 amount or your net income adjusted after taxes?
They're looking for gross. So they're looking for your gross figure. And then under normal unemployment benefit in Maryland, it would be half of whatever that gross figure is for that 18-month period as calculated as a weekly income. It would be half of that gross amount up to a maximum of $430.
Okay, and then Roya says the unemployment insurance asks if the business is owned by an entity and then asks for, quote, sold goods. Does that mean sold property?
Say that again, that was under the
Unemployment insurance
Okay.
asks if the business is owned by an entity.
So if you're applying in Maryland right now, you are going to be denied if you're an independent contractor. And that is why they're asking people to just sign up for that email list, because the current forms are set up for W-2 employers and employees. So if you start to fill that out, it's not even set up to really reflect what your business operation is. And the fact that you're not a W-2 employee and they can't go to your employer to pull out that tax information, which is what they would normally do to calculate your benefit, they're just going to deny your application. So I would say wait until, enter your email into that apply now link. It will notify you once the system's up and running for the independent contractors, and then apply then, because that's when you'll have your best opportunity to get them.
I believe because I was fooling around with things last night trying to look at everything. The Emergency Economic Injury Grant also has those same questions. And I believe in our case, Roya, no, we are not, your business is not owned by an entity. And I would think that for sold goods, that means for like a business where they're actually selling goods and services. We don't really sell our goods and services. We're commissioned employees. So I don't think those questions pertain to us, right, Bill?
Yeah, I don't think especially the goods question, I don't think you have to worry about. And even under the Paycheck Protection Act, they'll be asking for your business tax information and stuff like that, but they do give you an opportunity, just to put your social security number in. They ask for your doing business as trade name if applicable. So once you've clicked on that application that you are a independent contractor, sole proprietor, Then I would just fill it out as if it's just your name, you're not incorporated, you don't have an LLC, just fill out your name, your social security number, that way.
Bill,
Can an individual apply for more than one of these options?
So yes and no. If you are applying for the Paycheck Protection Act program, you could, in theory, apply for both that loan, which is forgivable, and for the economic injury disaster loan, but they can't be for the same purpose. So the best way to illustrate that would be you apply for the Paycheck Protection Program, which allows you to, get a forgivable loan to protect your paychecks. But then you also are renting out space, you have other business costs. You take out an economic injury disaster loan to pay those expenses. So because you've got two SBA loans for different purposes, that would be okay. But the one thing I would just recommend to everybody is the Paycheck Protection Act will allow you to do essentially 2 months worth of paycheck plus some additional costs like rents, interest on a mortgage payment, other kind of business related costs. And those theoretically, if it's doesn't exceed more than 250% of your payroll during that 8-week period, is forgivable. So before you, take out 2 different loans, see if you can fit some of that stuff in the Paycheck Protection Act up to 250%, because then it's forgivable and you don't have any loan to pay back. Now, as far as the unemployment insurance program goes too, what we think the answer is, if you're taking a loan out, then yes. If you're taking one of those disaster loans out, it's not for payroll, it's not to keep you employed. We think that because it is a loan that you are paying back, that's not effectively going to impact your unemployment insurance. So you could theoretically apply for those. Now, if you're doing the Payroll Protection Act, we do not think that you will be able to do that and the unemployment, because really that Paycheck Protection Act is keeping you, quote unquote, employed, even though you might not be doing anything during that 8-week period. So you're technically not unemployed during that time.
I know we're at the end of our time with you, but there's another question here which probably applies to several people. And that is, if you have already applied, how will that affect you if we now know that everyone's going to be denied?
So just, if you've already applied, don't worry about it. You'll get a denial. Sign up for the email and apply again. And that is not going to disqualify you from applying again. What the department is concerned about, though, is that people will get that initial denial and then not even make the effort to apply again now that it's open to independent contractors. So.
Okay, I think we're good.
Yep. And just to clarify, the last question here from Thomas is, if you apply for the disaster grant, I guess, but I think you already addressed that question, right? You can apply for more than one as long as you're not using the funds for the same thing. So if the funds don't overlap, you don't have to repay the funds. It is a grant sort of scenario.
Yeah, except under the EIDL loan, the economic injury loan, that is, except for that $10,000 grant that's attached to it, that the rest of that loan is not forgivable.
Okay.
Only the Paycheck Protection Act loan would be theoretically 100% forgivable, depending on what you're including.
Okay. And so the $10,000, if you receive the grant portion of the emergency economic injury grant, that $10,000 is forgivable. It's just the loan portion of that would not be.
Yeah, in fact, that $10,000 is actually not, you don't even have to go through the process that you'll have to go through with your banks to just get all of that loan amount forgiven. So under the EIDL loan, it is literally just a grant. Now, if you applied for the Paycheck Protection after you got the EIDL loan, they'll probably take that $10,000 grant and subtract it from the Paycheck Protection portion of yours, depending if you're using that $10,000 grant for payroll.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much for being here and answering our questions this morning. I'd like to encourage everybody to read the documents that that we sent out this morning, and then you'll send me some additional links, and I'll forward those out to everybody. But thank you very much for your time and answering our questions this morning.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to do it.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye,
Stay
thank you
safe.
very much.
All right. Let's see. We've got several other people online. We've got with us from Montgomery County Landlord Tenant, Miss Rosie McCrae Moody.
Hello.
Hi. We have June Killingsworth. Is she on the line as well?
No, just me today.
Oh, just you today. Okay. And then we also have Jean Poitevin, who can help us with DC Landlord Tenant. Jean, I see your name, but I can't see you. Hi. Thank you for joining us, both of you.
Hello, I'm here.
Okay, so I know we have lots of questions for you guys. We have landlords who are struggling getting rents received from tenants. We have folks trying to come up with strategic ways to protect their landlords. So we wanted to have you guys on the call so that we could ask you guys questions, things that, and get what you're seeing out there, what's going on right now. So I know we've had a moratorium on evictions in Montgomery County. And I'm gonna start with Montgomery County first, and then Jean, I'm gonna go over to you. Right now, there's a moratorium on evictions. However, the courts are still open and taking them, you'll just be put in a queue. Can you tell us a little bit more about that process and what landlords, what kind of recourse they have if their tenants are not paying rent right now?
There's not a lot you can do. I mean, court is closed. You cannot evict without court order, and court's closed for the foreseeable future. So at least through April, maybe into May. So all you can do is put yourself in the queue, and when court opens again, you know, get in line. And it's already a slow process, and it's going to be slower because it's going to be backed up. And what we encourage, and we get a lot of calls from tenants, they got laid off because everything got closed. And so what are they supposed to do? We've encouraged everybody, call your landlord, talk to them, and see what you can work out. If you're going to collect unemployment and you can only pay X amount every week, then pay X amount a week, pay something, because at the end, the money's due. So not paying it is just not a good option. Pay something, even if you pay 3/4 of it or something at the end, because there are monies out there. You know, they've passed all these different emergency buckets. So there are little buckets of money around for tenants to hit. And so we're asking everybody to pay their rent, even if they can't pay all of it, to pay some of it, and to talk to the landlord and do their best, work something out. Because I know this is hard for everybody.
Yes, no, everybody's experiencing hardship right now. But I think part of the issue is at least what I've heard is that there just seems to be a misunderstanding about the rent still accumulates. It's not just a stop, you don't have to, it seems to me that a lot of tenants just think that they can stop paying rent with no penalty.
No, that's not true.
Do you have anything on your websites or anything where we can point tenants so that they can see that the rent does continue to accrue, or how can we get that information to them?
We have on our website a couple of things. Let's see, renter issues. We tell them what I just told you.
Okay, so maybe we tell them that they call you and just get verification.
Yeah, and they want to know, the landlord sent me a letter and said my rent is late. Can he do that? Yes, you can. You can still send out letters and all those good things. But we just encouraging everybody, please, please, please talk to the landlord and work it out. Do what you can do. If you're getting only the unemployment check and you get that do they pay it every week? Then pay X amount every week, but pay something. Okay. Because at the end, it's going to be a balloon payment, and you're going to have this huge money. And do you want to owe at the end $1,000 or $4,000?
Right.
Because there is money, but if you just sit and don't pay, and at the end you owe like $6,000, $7,000, there's not enough money to bail you out.
Okay. And so maybe part of our jobs then as realtors is to inform tenants what the resources are out there so that they know that there is unemployment benefits. There's the, as we just learned, the emergency economic grants, things like that. I'm going to turn it over to Jean real quick so he can give us what's going on in DC. Jean.
Hi, everyone. In DC, there are no rent increases. That's with the amendment. Previously, the owner or the landlord was able to give a rent increase. But now with the new amendment, they stopped rent increases for any rent that was due to start during the emergency or prior to May 15th. Now, all evictions, there's a stay on all evictions prior to May 15th. And any case that's already in court is being continued. Any case that's already in court prior to May 15th is being continued. So in essence, it's almost like Montgomery County, except that now all filings in reference to landlord-tenant court are electronic. So the attorney files it electronically. It's going to be the same thing. There's going to be a backlog. So that tenant will stay in place for a while after the process, after this emergency is settled. They're saying that the rent increase piece, you can't implement a rent increase up to 30 days after the emergency is over. So let's say it's over the end of May, then July 1st would be the first rent increase. Now, in reference to landlords, so Maryland has a moratorium on foreclosures. DC also has a moratorium on foreclosures, but the foreclosures have to be, I guess, the bank, the lending institution has to be a DC institution. So credit unions, things like that. Well, we're recommending to owners in reference to getting a forbearance, as far as the federal side of it, any FHA loan, VA loan, or federally backed loan, you can do the forbearance on it, and they give you up to 360 days forbearance. But that's not the same for rent. So, if you're gonna, that, as Ms. McCray mentioned, that rent is owed when this, I guess, grace period is over. And for anybody that's doing TOPA, TOPA's extended 30 days for multifamilies.
And in Montgomery County, there's no moratorium, so you can raise rents as long as you give proper, 90-day notice. But I suggest you kind of hold off on it, because if people can't pay the rent that they owe now, it's kind of silly to make it higher.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's my suggestion. But if you just go to our website, www.montgomerycountymd.gov/DHCA, there's all kinds of COVID-19 information. And everybody's just kind of, I guess, going by the seat of their pants, because the rules change a little every day.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
we're kind of making it up as we go, but we're just trying to do the best we can. But like I said, we are encouraging people to make payments, because even the money that's out there is not going to be enough to bail people out who don't pay their rent for 3 months. And if somebody was already in the queue, and because we get calls from landlords who had gotten all the way till the end,
Mm-hmm.
and were scheduled with the sheriff, and then boom, they shut them down, those people will get evicted first.
Okay.
And there's nothing that will stop them from getting evicted, because their evictions have nothing to do with the pandemic. They just hadn't been paying for whatever their reason. And those people will get evicted first, because they were already in the queue and they've already been through the process.
Got it. And let me ask you this, because this is something that's come up a lot in the purchase market, where because of the possibility of a purchaser's financial situation to change over the course of the loan application process, lenders now are doing a 24-hour verification prior to closing. So they make sure that there's still that the person is still employed and nothing has significantly changed 24 hours prior to closing. The questions have been raised as to what we could do in the rental market. Jean, I think you and I had spoke about this really briefly yesterday, and you said as long as you put an addendum to the lease, this lease is subject to further verification 24 hours prior to move-in or something like that. That was your recommendation. I want to get both of your guys' feedback on that. Jean, you want to start us off with that?
Hi. Yes. So there are a lot of things in the DC lease that you can add, as additional provisions that doesn't violate the actual lease or doesn't go against what DC landlord tenant says. To add that in the lease as far as verification, I wouldn't do 24 hours. I'd do more like 48 hours, because notice to a tenant in DC is minimally 48 hours. So I would say put that in for any leases that are going now. It's a little late for leases that are already taking effect to add that, unless the tenant is willing to sign off on it. They can't be forced to sign off on an amendment after they have a ratified lease. So my recommendation is to, add it as 48 hours prior, and DC considers notice 48 hours prior that do not include a Sunday or a holiday. So take that into consideration when you're doing the lease.
Okay, thank you.
In Montgomery County, if you sign a lease, you signed it. You can tell the people that the house is for sale. And so at some point, ownership may change. And then you can give them notice that don't pay your rent to me anymore, pay it to Joe Smith. But you don't have to do anything special to the lease.
Oh, not for purchase. What if the landlord just wants to add an extra layer of protection to make sure the tenant is still employed prior to taking possession of the property? So adding a separate clause that says this lease is subject to employment verification, as Jean suggested, 48 hours prior to tenant move-in. And if
No, you can. You're supposed to do all that before you sign.
Yeah, so you're even if the tenant is aware and signs that as part of the lease, your thinking is that it would not be allowable under Montgomery County?
No, because you're supposed to have done all this. You have to do your due diligence. So because I could sign a lease in good faith, have an $80,000 a year job, and the next day I go to work and they fire me.
Right.
You can't, or I can sign the lease, walk in there, and a week later they fire me. Same difference.
Right. So what do we do? Do we just delay signing the lease then? I guess there's a risk to that too. If you have
no matter what you do, they run the risk of maybe losing their jobs. I don't know what added protection you can give, give yourself.
Let's open this up to questions. Let's see here. Do we have any other questions for these folks on the line? And Jean, can you just tell us really quickly the services that you provide? Because you have a unique, Jean, for those of you that don't know, used to be a property manager here with Long & Foster, one of the best in the business, and now he runs his own company. Jean, tell us really quickly what the services that you provide.
So we do business licenses in DC for rental properties. Rental property owners. Maybe if you have a new listing in DC, you may see one of my emails that comes up saying, hey, congratulations on your listing. We'll do the business licenses. We also do the 90-day notice for contract purchaser moving into the property. So in DC, if you have tenants in a property, you have to give them a 90-day notice in order for the contract purchaser to take possession. And the lease has to be on a month-to-month tenancy. We also do that for owners that are coming back because, you know, DC is a very transient area. Might have a client that's State Department or Foreign Service or something. They're coming back. We serve the tenant with the 90-day notice for the owner reoccupancy. We do certificate of occupancies for 2-family and above, change of ownership or matter of right. And we basically do pre-inspections of the property before DCRA goes in. Now, I have to tell you a little bit of things when you're going through the licensing process right now. DC is not giving any exemption numbers on the RAD registration for an owner. The office is closed. They are date stamping the RAD registrations. So when you're signing a lease, you'll see on the DC lease, it says business license number, registration number, and certificate of occupancy if applicable. So they are now date stamping it, but they will not give you the number until they return back into the office. Also, with the DCRA inspections, they are doing inspections, but what they're doing are called virtual inspections. So the inspector will sit in their vehicle and you will go into the property with either FaceTime or Google Duo, and they will walk through the property through your phone. I'm not doing those inspections unless the property is vacant or the tenant is not in the property due to, you know, the social distancing piece. If DCRA doesn't want to go into the property, I'm not going into it either. So those are the changes. They're very slow on certificate of occupancy. So if an owner purchases a 2-family house and needs to do a change of ownership, it is super slow because I don't think anybody's in the office right now. So all those things are delayed and they will be delayed for the foreseeable future. We used to do license turnarounds within 5 days. It takes us about 10 business days now.
Okay, thank you, John. Hey, there's some folks wanted to know what your contact information is. Thomas was kind enough to put your name down. If you could put your email address and your phone number there in the chat section, just so that everybody can get a hold of you if they need to. Montgomery County resources. We should go to Montgomery County Landlord Tenant. Anything else that you think we need to stay abreast of, or what do we need to be aware of?
In terms of our licensing department, we're up and running. You can't walk into the office, but we're there. If you need to speak to somebody, call 311. Somebody is on duty, they'll call you back. They are processing applications. And for code enforcement, they're not doing routine inspections. So unless there's an emergency, they're not going to come in your house. They're not going in. They are doing exterior inspections, but that's pretty much it. And if they did an inspection before the emergency hit and they gave you a 30-day notice to fix something, you automatically get an extension because, you know, you're not in a position to fix it. So
Right.
Unless it's an emergency, you have time.
Got it. All right. What other questions do we have? Avi, are you on the line? I know you had some questions. Do we address everything? What else? Anything that you guys think is important that we need to communicate to everybody and people should be aware of?
Is there something, my question is, as landlords, is there something that you would like us to tell tenants? Because we get calls every day too, 311 calls.
Yeah.
Is there something that you would like us to know or pass on to tenants?
I mean, I think to save all of the phone calls, if there were just something on your website, sort of a frequently asked questions or
There is. That's why.
there is.
Yeah, it's a FAQ for landlords and it's a FAQ for tenants. is there.
And so, and it says that, that they have to, that the rents will continue to accrue. It's very clear about those. I mean, those are the main questions that I get.
Yeah, you
Okay.
have to pay. You have to pay.
Okay.
And you can still, and you still owe late fees. That's on there.
Okay. Okay.
And if
All
there's
right,
something, take a look. And if something is not there that you think should be there, shoot me an email.
okay, I will.
Because we
And I just,
updating it constantly.
yeah, I just want to thank everybody. I mean, Jean, you were super responsive and jumped on this call to take our questions. And everybody that I've spoken to in Montgomery County, they've returned my calls. I can tell that even they're driving in their cars and they're calling me back and answering questions. So thank you all for everything that you guys are doing to keep
Teresa,
everything
I'd like
moving
to
forward.
add something.
Yeah.
I'd like to add something. So on the payment protection program, this is for small businesses. So I applied for that as well, just like everybody else. It's usually best to apply through the bank that you have a relationship with. And when they're asking for documentation, they're asking, so if you're a sole proprietor, then, you know, basically it works off of your Social Security, but a lot of entities, you know, are single member LLCs. They're asking for your profit and loss statement. So just keep that in mind, you know, so they'll look through your paperwork and, you know, sometimes you don't have a payroll as a independent contractor or a sole proprietor or, you know, your little LLC. You don't run a payroll. So basically they're looking at your loss, your profit and loss, your P&L statements, and that's how they're going to determine what you're eligible for on that loan. So just keep that in mind if you're applying for the payment protection program.
Thank you, Jean. And also, Coco has a question for you that, Jean, you can answer really quickly. She's asking if the DC business licenses need to be renewed for DC landlords.
Oh, another thing, they're doing an extension on all renewals, whether it's a professional license or a business license. They're doing extensions on that. And yes, it does have to be renewed, but they're giving, I think, 45 days after the emergency is over. And your biannual reports. So if you have an LLC or an entity in DC, whether it's a foreign entity or a Maryland entity that's working in DC or a DC entity, they're giving you up to June 30th. Hold on 1 minute, let me make sure. They're giving you up till, I want to say it's June 1st, because they would do April 1st. So they're giving you up to June 1st to submit your biannual reports.
Okay. And really, and so they're renewed every 2 years, correct,
Yes.
Jean, the business licenses?
Every 2 years.
Yep. Let's see, there's been a flurry of questions that just came through.
Yeah.
Hang on. Sarah
Montgomery
Toppin.
County license extensions.
Oh, hold on. You're on. Let me unmute you.
Mute. Okay, they are not doing extensions. So they're there. So your license is going to expire in June, and they'll send out the notices July 1st for the new ones. So if you're already licensed, you should be fine. And if you need a license, just go ahead and apply. It may take a little longer, and they'll have some leeway for that, but they're not doing extensions, but they may offer a little more time because they know the process is a little slower at this point because people are working from home.
Okay. And Sarah Toppins wants to know how this changes things with TOPA.
So TOPA, which part? the single family TOPA, which is the Form 1, or the multifamily TOPA, which hasn't changed?
Form 1, she says.
Form 1, it doesn't change. I would still submit. You know, you're still giving notice that you're listing the property. So I would send it the same way that you should send it, through some type of tracking mail, whether it's FedEx, whether it's overnight, something that you can track that it was delivered. And basically do it the same way, because the single family TOPA is pretty simple. You're just notifying the tenant that the owner is putting the property on the market for sale. The multifamily TOPA, you know, as I was saying, it's been extended for 30 days after the emergency. So that's a little different and a little more complicated.
All right, and Jim has a question. If a landlord and tenant do reach an agreement regarding a reduction in rent to be paid later, is there any kind of form to address this, or just use a blank addendum? What's the best way to address?
I was just typing this, but I don't know how to send it. There's no special form. You just write it down, but make sure when you make an agreement, it says exactly what you mean it to say. Because once you sign it, you're stuck with it. So don't make it vague so that it can be misinterpreted. Make sure it says exactly what you need it to say. That at the end, you will owe whatever the remaining balance is or whatever. Just make sure it says what you mean it to say. But there's no special form, and get both parties to sign it and attach it as an addendum.
Okay, and then Avi has a follow-up question to our conversation earlier. Can a landlord include a clause that would allow for employment verification a few days before the lease start date as a contingency? So I think, Rosie, you said that
until the lease is signed, he's not your tenant.
Okay.
So if you want to say, if you want to check it one more time before they start, you can do that. And then you don't have to sign it, because once it's signed, you're stuck.
Got it. Bijan, you have a different take on this in DC. You think we could have a 48 hours
Basically,
opportunity.
what I was saying is the same thing that Rosie's saying. If it's prior to the lease signing, prior to the lease being ratified, then yes, you can add that to the lease. Now, if the lease has already been signed and the tenant agrees to it, right, then you can add that as an addendum to the lease. So it's not that if the tenant doesn't agree to it, then as Rosie says, you're stuck. But if the tenant does agree to it, then, you know, that's something that the tenant agreed to, and that would be an addendum to the lease. So let's say you signed the lease yesterday and you say to the tenant, hey, tenant, we would like to be able to verify your employment before you move in, because you're not moving until next month. And the tenant says, okay, I'll sign the addendum. But if the tenant says no, then as Rosie said, you are stuck.
So if you put it in and they agree with it, then they agree, but that's up to them. If they don't want to sign such a thing, they don't have to. It's their choice.
All right, thank you guys very much. Oh, in COVID times, can a landlord ask for more than a month's security deposit if the tenant agrees to it?
In the state of Maryland, the security deposit cannot exceed 2 months' rent. And that includes any pet deposits or whatever. It cannot exceed 2 months' rent.
In DC, the security deposit cannot exceed the first month's rent. That's it, done.
All right. I think that answers our questions. You guys were amazing. Thank you so much for being on the call with us. If everybody could just stay on the line for 60 more seconds, I just have some reminders and announcements to make. But thank you, Jean and Rosie, very much for being on the call with us.
You're welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, just a quick reminder, Luke Rosansky is online. Oh, Luke, I was just about to to make a reminder. Please fill out the survey. I sent it again in the wrap-up, or I'm sorry, the sales meeting notes last night. And also I wanted to make mention that Reston has more responses than we do. So let's make sure to get online, fill out their survey so we have more responses than the Reston office, please. Greatly appreciate it. Also, Sue Fitz let me know so far only 10 agents have completed the survey per loop. So please get online. Right now, we have another 30 minutes to get the survey completed. It is on the sales meeting notes. Maybe the third paragraph down is the link. And here's the link right here if you just want to copy it and paste it into your browser. The other thing is, as Sue Fitz let me know, the book that I thought that quote came out of yesterday is not the Maxwell Daily Reader. It is another daily reader of inspirational quotes. She put that on the Facebook page in response to Jane's question. And do we have a joke for the day? Anybody want to close us out with a joke?
Shaney?
I'm here. I'm here. What's my joke today? I went on Lindsay Zarniak's Instagram. What did I find? Okay. This one's better. Where do you learn to make a banana split?
Where do you?
Where?
At Sunday school.
Oh, very cute. I like that.
Bump.
Thank you, Shaney. That's
Well done.
You're welcome.
Hey, guys.
I'm here all week.
Thank you very much. All right, guys, have a fantastic day. Staff, if you can stay online with us.